Albatross here again with the Cypher Unlimited crew. We have our usual suspects of AD or Alpha Dean, and we have the return of Spigs18 or Anthony. And, Dean, what are we doing here today?
Well, tonight is one of those nights, where we're going to sit around, we're going to talk trash, we're going to talk about how to be a bad player, or should we say a good player, how to help you GM out, all that good stuff. Um, we're going to talk to the audience if they want to talk to us. It's just a laid back night, but we got our brother in arms back. So, and let's get this thing moving. How you want to handle this?
I guess we're going to talk about. Oh, first and foremost, I know this week we were supposed to have an interview with the Kickstarter guys from what you call it,
Here be
Diamond Throne.
dragons.
yeah, We Be Dragons, but due to some logistical issues, it got canceled, and we're gonna have that interview next week. With that said, sorry for the background. I'm in my kitchen right now, but all this is said and good. So if you guys are hungry, I can whip you guys up something to eat as well, and we'll figure this out for the next recording as well. But let's talk about how to be a good player. Like, don't be a dick to your GM. Let's figure out ways. Let's talk about ways that a GM, you could help your GM out during the course of a session.
I got a good one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll start it out. I got a good one. Don't argue with your GM about rules. Let the game flow. And if there's a discussion about a rule or an interpretation, save it for later. Just put a pin in it. I think that's first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, that's great advice. I've been on both sides of that.
Me too.
I've been the one, someone arguing with me, and I've been the one arguing, being the a-hole in the discussion. So I can absolutely feel your point on that one, Dean.
It's definitely it might be obvious to most or us, I guess, or I guess most, but it is something that is kind of commonplace in the TTRPG community, just due to the nature of the hobby. Like, it's a rules based thing. I mean, us here who play Cypher System, or us here at Cypher Unlimited, we're not too heavy on that rule aspect. But it is a big part of, you can't avoid it. It is a big part of role playing games, that rule book. Whether that be a good thing or a bad thing, whatever. We obviously try not to lean too heavily on it, but it's inevitable at some point that someone is. I've seen it at a table happen. Honestly, it's happened. But it's best, like Dean said, save it for later. Like, write a little note down, like, hey, we made this mistake, or hey, I think we made this mistake. Let's discuss it after the game. Let's not break the flow.
I think you brought a good point out, because I think it's legitimate to have like concerns of certain rulings. If the ruling is obviously, it's not so much for me personally as a GM, it's not so much the correction if I got a rule wrong. Maybe it's the delivery. Like somebody could be like, oh, okay, that's how we're doing it. And then, at the break time, they'd be like, hey, usually the rule works this way. Instead of, no, you're wrong, page 227 says that it has to be done this way. And, stopping the whole immersion of the game with I think it's, more of an issue for me personally.
Well, I look at it in two respects. Stopping the immersion, I get that, but the other portion of it is, to me, it breaks the rhythm of everything that's going on as a whole, not just your immersion, but and you don't want anything adversarial at your table. I mean, I think one of the biggest things about this is that it is a social convention, and I think a lot of people kind of forget that. I mean, the term at the end of it is game, tabletop role-playing game, RPG, how you look at it, but it's really a social convention. It's a group of people coming together to do this thing. And I think when you stop gamifying it and stop making it adversarial and stop making it like the GM versus the players, it helps. That's just my thought process. That's the way I see it.
And actually,
Yeah.
now that you touch on that, it's actually a good tangent into another way on how to what makes a good player or how to help the GM is don't make that relationship adversarial. Like, I mean, it is obviously the GM is telling the story and is the one putting the obstacles in front of you, but don't think of it as like, hey, he's a jerk. Or I guess in Cypher system it doesn't happen as much because what you call it, the players have a little more agency with player intrusions and like they roll everything, so there's no hidden rolls or anything, so there can't be really any deception by the GM, behind the screen really, other than like fudging stats or something behind the screen. But a lot of players, or excuse me, not a lot of players, but I guess a mindset from I guess D&D. I guess again, I hate to say that, but it is what it is. Like a lot of people who come from that game, it is like it has wargaming roots, and people who enjoy that sort of thing, that versus mentality, it's okay. Like if you enjoy that stuff, it is what it is. But as you have to make sure everybody is on that same table. If you're coming to a Cypher system game with that mindset, and everyone else at the table is like just trying to tell a story, you might come off a little off-putting, and yeah, it could screw up the GM's flow when you're trying to debate rules in the middle of his flowery storytelling or something. Just again, I guess what it really boils down to is time and place for that adversarial type, mindset.
Yeah, I think though, with like yeah, granted, systems that are more rules heavy tend to lead to more like mechanical discussions and disagreements, right? But I think human nature, it doesn't matter what game you're playing, there's going to be a disagreement regardless, because even when you run convention games, the Cypher system, there's always, I mean, not always, but you do get the occasional adversarial player and disagreements. So, it's it happens in Cypher system as well. Like, I don't want to pin it on like a specific rule set. I think a jerk's a jerk no matter what game. Whether we play Cypher system or Monopoly, a jerk's gonna be a jerk.
That is
Well,
true. Yeah.
and that is definitely a truth. You know, yeah, just that's true. you know,
Oh,
Jason, hey, welcome, Jason. Good to see you, man. And you are absolutely right. It is so true. And oh yeah, just so everybody knows out there, whoever's listening, hanging out with us tonight, we are fielding questions from the audience as well. So, you know, you feel free to chime in, talk to us about whatever.
I
So
mean,
what's the next topic? Point of view for being a good player.
I think the biggest one, the one that I personally is sort of like a peeve of mine, is be prepared. I think that, and what I mean by be prepared is you don't have to memorize every ability or what everything that's on your sheet does. Like, and it's okay to say, hey, you don't know, but be prepared as at least have a general idea what your abilities do. At least have a general idea what your character's like motivation and type is, because if we're constantly, like every time it's your turn, you're taking 20 minutes, or 30 seconds to decide, what your action is going to be, because you're constantly looking over your sheet and wanting to look stuff up. It kind of is, it's not fair to not only the GM, it's not fair to the other players.
it definitely ruins the flow of play and can stifle a GM if you as the player are like, when it's your turn to act, you're like, wait a second, I need what can my character do again? At least have like, again, not like Anthony said, where you don't have to have the whole sheet memorized, just have a basic idea of what you can do. And on top of that, this kind of is a subcategory, I guess, on be prepared, is like be prepared for your turn. Like think about what you're gonna do before it actually comes to you. Like while other players are doing things or interacting or whatever have you, take that time to think about how you're gonna proceed instead of like, I don't know, fiddling on your phone, looking at a website if you're at home or something, and be in the moment and prepared for your turn. So that again, what you call it, I'm just laughing at Jason's thing. He basically said the same thing I said.
He just echoed your sentiments exactly.
But yeah, like it's super important to that like being helpful to the GM and being a good player if you're ready to act when it's your turn and you're not waiting that 20-30 seconds trying to decide, like mumbling, well, what did he do, what did they do again, what does my character do again. You should
And
be basically ready, prepared.
let me add a little thing to that, to a little caveat. That also preparedness, if you are a new player, do not take this as someone attacking you or beating up on you or telling you don't learn the game. We're not saying that. New players, for you to be prepared, is just kind of pay attention a little bit to what's going on around you. Look at your character sheet, and have your question, if it's a question that you to figure out what you're going to be ready with that. You know that prep, because we definitely know how to deal with a new group, new players versus veterans. And what we're talking about are to you veteran players who've played enough, games. Don't get distracted. Don't distract other people at the table.
Oh yeah, yeah. This absolutely doesn't apply to a full table of new players. I'm more in my head. I'm picturing, you've been playing a couple of sessions already. You guys are
Right.
starting to get into your groove. Everybody knows each other, and then But if you are a new player, like what Dean said, don't be scared to ask questions. And if
Please do.
you don't understand something, ask straight out. Because even if the GM isn't willing to help you, I'm sure players will be. So like it's okay to not know something, but it's not okay to act like you know it. If you don't know, just say, "Hey, what's this do again? I don't understand this."
Yeah,
Oh,
I can give you a couple of examples of things that I've noticed that are kind of cool to me. It's like I've seen new people play. I've had new players in my group, and they're coming from, especially coming from like Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe never playing before. They don't conceptualize some of the mechanics, and it's okay. So like the idea of effort, you know and I've had players ask me, now how's that thing work, where I can get a bonus, or I can make this easier. So you know what, we take a moment, we explain effort, we teach them how to do it real quick, and keep the game moving. And I think that's like the huge thrust of what Anthony's saying about be prepared to keep the story going, be prepared to keep the fun going, because that's what it's all about.
yeah, and on top of that, if you have maybe a more complicated question that you don't want to ask at the table because you feel like the answer might take too long, write it down. Try to remember it for later. So then once the session is over, you can pull the GM aside or just ask the whole table, "Hey, this is my question. I don't want to ask it in the middle of the game because I don't want to slow things down." That is definitely. I mean, I personally really like that. If someone comes up to me after a game, I like helping people out. So it's kind of hard to help someone out if they don't say they need the help, or like bring up the question. So whether it's a short question in the game or a longer question outside of the game, don't be afraid to ask those questions.
That just makes me think about another point about being a good player. Um, you know, and being a good player is, you know, pick up on the basics. Have your own personal basic toolkit, because if you take the time to learn those basics, especially with a cipher system game, you become an asset to the GM at the table. You become a huge asset, because it makes the game, and I'm using terms from the game on purpose, just so everybody know. You are an asset. You're easing the difficulty of the action of being a GM to, by having that basic toolkit, which means I don't have to, continually tell you the same thing over and over again.
I
Oh,
think Brilliant Loser asked.
yeah, bro, you just asked a question. He said, "What do you recommend to players when they try to pass off the spotlight to other players?"
Oh, I
Who
mean,
wants to field that?
I can start with that one. I'm pretty much the newest one out of all of us, so I don't have nearly as much experience. So something that I found really easy to do, and it's something I still do. Or if I'm a player or something, and I find someone's like either not getting the spotlight, or I want to include them or something, is in character just ask their character for help. Like, just say, "Oh, I cannot do this alone. Like, whoever, come and aid me," or like that's the simplest, easiest way to share that spotlight is to, if like, let's say the GM is focusing too heavily on, like, let's say me as a player, like, I will just randomly include whoever I wanted in the scene, just like, hey, you're here, you're gonna be part of this now, like, yeah. And even then you can even like, to spotlight them more, like, let's say I'm having the spotlight too much for a game where I feel like I could say, hey, what you call it, not only am I gonna ask for help, I'm gonna ask them, hey, what do you think we should do? Like, I'll ask for what they think we should do to proceed from here.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same thing. Is make sure that all your actions that you do with the person that you feel isn't getting any spotlight time is dialogue and action is done in character in the narrative. So you won't mention anything outside of game. You address them as their character to let that person know, hey, you're welcome to come into this scene. Like, I'm inviting you in. Another thing you can do, which Cypher system does that very few other systems don't have, is you have player intrusions. If you feel like the GM is ignoring someone or is accidentally forgetting someone is, use one of your player intrusions to drag that person into a scene that he's not necessarily involved in. Right. And one, the player would appreciate it that someone else is recognizing that maybe they're not getting as much spotlight time as everyone else at the table. And two is you bring them into the narrative with the rules of the game, which is always a good thing.
Well, here's the thing. Jason said he has trouble convincing people to use player intrusion. So I'm gonna jump in basically on the bandwagon of what's been going on here. Player intrusions. The best way to encourage a player intrusion is put your players in those positions where they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Let's just say you got a bunch of tier 1 characters. Just put a tier 8 idea in their way. Or a level 8 obstacle. Does not have to necessarily be an adversary, but an obstacle. And the only way to get through it would be a player intrusion. And then you can like nudge them a little bit, be like, I would, at my table, especially if you're playing at a table, or even if you're playing on a virtual table, whisper to a person, player intrusion. Or if you're playing at a table with the group, have a bunch of little notes and have player intrusion written on it and just slide it across the table. That way it's not obvious, but it's just a tool.
I was going to use the old D&D trick is bring a spy into the game.
Yeah, there too.
Before the game starts, if it's a reoccurring group, not a one shot, but like a campaign that you're running and you're running with the same people, I'll pull our aside. I say, hey, I noticed these guys are, not applying effort, man. I really, I really want to amp up the difficulty level, but no one seems to want to apply effort. Could you do me a favor? Your first 4 rolls, could you just apply effort and state it out loud so everyone knows that you're doing it?
Right. Yeah, another great
I'll buy you a beer after the session or something. So you put a spy in. So, because it's a lot easier for players to follow another player because I can understand the apprehension if the GM is saying, hey, you should apply effort. It's almost like, well, maybe I shouldn't if he's telling me I should.
Exactly.
And that'll help. And what'll happen is with that is that's where you start building that rapport between GM and player. And you guys can start understanding, oh, wait a minute, this guy is not actually competing against me. Mm-hmm. He's just trying to tell a great story. And I'm the player in the story. I'm the star of the story. And I think that's where, my favorite thing, the paradigm shift.
Yeah, but it's not like the player has to take some responsibility for that as well. I think that like a player should, maybe not in like a convention setting, even though an experienced player can do this, but if you're playing with your friends or you're playing with a group more than one session, you should recognize what type of GM you have and then change your play style to fit the style the GM likes. You know, like I think me, Dean, and I, we tend to be more improv GMs, and that's cool, right? But there's other GMs that like to have a linear narrative, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that either. So as a player, you have to sit down and recognize, okay, is this the sort of GM that's going to let me riff off the other players and take the narrative, you know, in any way, and he's going to be willing, he or she is going to be willing to, you know, allow us the freedom to control the narrative? Or is this the sort of GM that has a specific story he wants to tell, and we should help him accommodate whatever story he's telling? Neither way is wrong, but the players should be able to recognize what sort of GM he is and then change their actions to help, you know, build that story. Because they're both satisfying in their very own ways.
Right, and that's the thing, and it also gives you the ability to decide what kind of, you know, long-term game you want to be in. Do you want to be in the linear storyteller? You know what? What's in the book is what you're going to get, or do you want the guy that has the book, and the book is great, but guess what? The book is just seeds for everything else going on around you. You know, I come from, you know, long time ago of gaming, so that's what they gave us. They gave us books that were just a bunch of seeds. You know, even though the book might have a couple of hundred pages in it, it was still just a bunch of setting seeds. It was just a bunch of seeds to keep the idea and the action moving, and we had to fill in all the blanks. So that's become my thing.
So how, as a player, can you help in both those cases? Because linear doesn't necessarily mean, you know, you just walking straight down this one path. You know, linear means that you have a general concept of a story that it's going to always go back to that story, right? So as a player, how can you help both those type of GMs? You know, the more improv GM that's willing to go in any direction, or the GM that's trying to tell a specific story?
Well, to help the specific story, GM, is pretty easy. You as maybe an experienced player or a new player who happens to have this skill, you know, you see another player going off the trail or trying to do something ridiculous, you in character have to be like, wait, we're on a mission. Like, we have something we need to be doing. You keep the team focused in character. I've actually seen that happen in my home games where it comes down to PvP roles to keep the freaking narrative on track. And that's how willing the players were to try to keep the narrative going. Like, one player would be like, no, I'm going to smite that. Like, our paladin would always really wanted to, like, either way. He would always try to do something ridiculous. And another player, either the rogue or the our mage, would be like, no. Like, they try to, like, physically stop. Like, you can't go and do that. And it comes down to a PvP role. That, again, even in both cases, whether it's an improv GM or a linear story, it kind of adds... I mean, this might be my personal opinion, but I actually enjoy seeing that go down in character, where it comes down to PvP roles and the mechanics. And again, you as the experienced player, or whatever, the person trying to keep it on track, just initiating this PvP role or whatever should put it in the mind of the other person, like, hey, we want to keep it on track. And if the other person's still trying to go off and do crazy things, then that might just be another, you know, problem player or something.
Yeah, it's not a problem. It's the problem for a specific GM.
Yeah, for the linear story GM. Yes.
Because for the improv GM, he or she might be loving this. Like, oh, hey, you know, I was bored with this part of the story anyway. Let's follow Dean wherever he's taking us, right? But it's like what you said. As an experienced player, you can sit there and recognize, hey, this GM is having issues with me wanting to do this crazy, you know, like episode or crazy thing. And I just saw in chat that Brilliant Loser said he has the most trouble with improv GMs, right? I played with you, and I'll tell you an example of what was an improv when we played the box, right? And our character decided to go smoke a joint by the bushes, right? None of that was pre-planned. You know, the whole thing with his parents, you know, opening up, pulling him in, right? But it felt natural to do in the game session, right? I could have been the jerk, like, oh, and then you came back. Okay, now you back with the group. But, you know, as an improv GM, you want to build onto story to like allow the players to be like, hey, I created this because of the actions that I did by walking away, right?
Right.
Al, as a as an experienced player, still knew that we had a one shot to do. So once he got into the wood area, he still tried to get back to the group instead of saying, "Hey, I'm gonna make this whole session about myself." You know,
Right.
so that's an
And
example of an experienced player recognizing that GM allows me to improv, but I still have a job to do to keep the story moving forward.
and it was also the other players too having a group of experienced players, because it was like it became a dual thing, because both sides of the coin were working together to make that happen. Let's get to the group and let's get
Yeah.
to, our goal. Whereas, like you said, in the campaign, you can go off on a tangent, and the GM, and all the players could all be in, 4 or 5 different places. So, uh, Jason said the last one shot I ran, tired second half. Right, exactly. Exactly, Jason. Jason just said the last adventure, last one shot he ran, the second half was all suggested by the players. So he changed the whole thing around and riffed the ending.
That's
And
awesome.
that's the way you do it. Um, and a lot of times, and that's one of the coolest things about it, about being a good player and helping your GM, is that you guys can feed off of each other. And it's one of the beautiful things about Cypher system, is that when you embrace the idea that your players are the stars of the story, they're the heroes of the world. They're the Luke Skywalker, they're the Aragorn and Legolas. They're the Superman and Batman of your world. It just unfolds beautifully.
And
And
yeah,
it works the other way around too. The GM should recognize the type of players he have and
Absolutely.
you know, try to make his game similar to what Jason said. Make his game more inclined to what the players are comfortable with, or what they find fun.
Right.
exactly. But we're here to talk about what makes a good player, not a good GM. But what you call it? Just to piggyback off that a little bit, it is super helpful as the player. Like, if you're seeing, well, again, it depends on the kind of game. I'm talking more about the improv now because we're talking about improv. You as a player, and I remember, what is it? Jesus or Brilliant Loser said he struggles as an improv player. Um, what you need to do is just like kind of let go of that. Like, I don't even like. Jesus, maybe you
Can,
can elaborate a little bit.
let me can I address that a little bit, Al?
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's the thing, Brilliant Loser or Jesus. Everything you do, you are improving as a player, because you don't know anything of what was going on. The only thing you have set up is your character's personality. All you have set up is your character's personality and abilities and equipment. Everything else you do have to improv. So if you just embrace the idea of your character, you'll be okay. Think about life. You know, you know who you are. You got your personality. You know it, but you don't know what the entire day is going to send. It is kind of improvisational, and if you take it from that aspect, that viewpoint, I think you'll be able to jump over that hump where you're talking about that improv. Where you're going to, where you want to, if you think about it, if you're trying to say like adding value to the story, or you know pulling a player intrusion or whatever the case may be. I mean, we've done it to each other. Prime example, we were playing GM roulette, we were playing superheroes, and my character was getting ready to go off on a tangent, um, because we were playing super villains actually. And I was getting ready to go off on a tangent and take the game in another direction. And one of the players used a player intrusion to pull everything back, and it just kind of, oh right, we're not doing a whole campaign. I only got a certain amount of time. So it was kind of cool. I was being true to my character, true to my thought process about him, but again, little things like that.
Well, I think specifically in your story, I think it was me trying to stop you from chasing your brother, the other
Yep.
hero, or something.
My
I
brother was a
actually
hero and I
remembered
was a villain.
something. I actually remembered something.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was you, Al. It was. I was a villain, and my character's brother was a superhero, and I wanted to murk my brother, and I was about to take the story in the wrong direction. We had something else to do, so it was pretty cool.
but what I was gonna say to piggyback you, like you basically said what I was gonna say much more eloquently than because I was starting to ramble. But like I see Anthony do this a ton, like a ton, and it helps improv GM a ton. Like he'll have some quirk or aspect of his character that he just role plays, like he'll bring it out randomly. I'm blanking on which characters specifically, but like he'll take out his rosaries and pray, or like he'll like take out a picture of some like relative and like reminisce for a moment before taking a serious action, or something like that. And all that stuff helps plant seeds for the GM to play off of. Um,
That's
uh,
what I was gonna say. As a improv GM, the one thing you need the most is for the player to plant seeds. So I guess as a player, I assume everyone's a GM like likes to GM the style I do. Like I want my players to give me stuff to riff off. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I try to give that to the GM, even if you don't use it. It's like, oh hey, you know what I mean? Like I'm just gonna mention something, and maybe Al or Dean or Jesus or whoever's the GM might find something out of these little stupid things I'm doing to
it's
make
a,
it
it, it's a
incorporate.
double edged it's a double edged sword. What you're talking about, Anthony, and it's great because you as a player giving that stuff to your GM, but your GM, all you guys got to do is pay attention because your GM do this. This is the favorite line from our GM. What does that look like? Or tell me about that situation. Because trust me, if I'm say 9 times out of 10, if I'm telling you to tell me what it looks like, I don't have that prepared for that particular idea. I'm waiting for the players to give it to me, and I'm and I just feel I'm good enough to take those suggestions, you know. But what Al was talking about with Anthony with the rosary beads, that was in my game. That was in Tenebris Infinitum that we played, and Anthony's character was the cook, you know, and he had all of his gear and all of his stuff, but he kept pulling out these rosary beads because he was a devout Catholic, you know, and he'd say his Hail Marys and stuff. So one time he was saying Hail Marys in the game, and I had like the demons come over the hill, and he's like, "Oh, what? You're not listening, mother. You're not listening, Holy Mother," or something. He said, but it was great. It was just a good moment.
and I'll let y'all in on a little secret now that we're talking about this sort of thing, right? I do like what we've been saying, like, and again, this is a real secret, real hush hush. If you see this video or you're watching the stream, don't tell anybody, because this is a real under the hat GM secret of mine. I'm sure y'all already know it, but like I'll say, hey, what does this look like, or what I'll say it straight up in the game. Like I think Jason was in one of my games recently, so I'll say, hey, what does this look like, or what's the name of this person, and I'll say, hey, I have something ready in case y'all don't have something suggested, so you don't feel too much pressure to come up with something, right? That kind of helps with new players. They don't feel that like intense pressure to like come up with something. But the truth is, I don't have anything ready. There's never anything ready. I make it up right then and there. I'll say I have something ready just in case, again, to kind of relieve the pressure, just in case they can't come up with something. But I just make it up right then and there. Like there's nothing ever anything. There's never anything ready.
Well, I want to just one of brilliant loser statements. He wrote. He gave an example. He said, for example, in a martial arts game, for example, my character was the speaker and ran into the final boss. Knowing it's not my role to be the one to take out the final boss, I tried to take the battle elsewhere instead of taking it on myself. But I ended up kind of slowing down the game. I think I know the section you're talking about this, and I have two things I would tell you as a player. One, when you said I'll try to take the battle, I mean, I know it's not my job to take out the final boss. My first question is, who says it's not your job, right? The narrative is whatever the players make it, right? And the second one is, I don't think you slowed the game down. You just none of it slows. No one messes up the story. The story is what we make it. So as a player, you should never feel like you're hurting the overall story. At least in an improv game that I like to run, all you're doing is changing the narrative. You know,
Right.
it's more my fault for not adjusting to whatever actions you are. Like it should never be that your actions like threw a monkey wrench in the story, because then the GM is not, the GM has to take responsibility for the narrative as well.
Right.
Right.
And what you're saying about that, again, it's what I would hope people who start playing Cypher start to do. Yes, there are types in Cypher system. Yes, they are, akin to classes in D&D, and you know what? But guess what? There's so many ways to approach an issue and a problem that anybody could be the catalyst to taking down the boss if it's one of those situations. You're a speaker. So, hey, use your speaker abilities. Better yet, I'll give you an example. I created Captain America for an Avengers game as a speaker. Captain America was so badass, but he was a speaker. He still had his shield, still had his, some combat ability and all of that kind of stuff. But his speaker abilities were where he did things, because he would throw the bad guy off, you know, you know, uh, and you can think about it. They even give you examples like when you watch the Avengers movie. So this is stuff that I want you to try to connect to when you play, because like in Captain America: Civil War, when he fought Batroc the Leaper the first time, and Batroc was like, "Oh, you need your weapons, your vaunted shield," and Captain America basically used that speaker ability. Was it Terrifying Presence, where he looked at him and he put his shield on his back and was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, boy." Boom, prime example. You're using a speaker ability in
I
a
mean,
different way.
I would
You
even
know,
take it in a different direction. Video games have roles,
that's
right?
it. They do.
MMOs have roles. Great stories have no roles. Bilbo Baggins would be support in a video game, not
Right,
the main hero of one of the greatest literatures ever written. So,
right,
like, as a player, you should never be like, if I'm playing WoW, then yeah, I'm the tank, I'm the healer, I'm the DPS. I have to know my role. But when I'm playing a role playing game, is what how can I make the story interesting?
right.
Not what I'm going to be the support for everyone else. No, the spotlight gets shared between everyone.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
just
And that's what I'm saying. With all those examples are perfect. I mean, no matter how you look, even when you start trying to characterize, things, you know, this is why, D&D sometimes doesn't work for certain things, you know, because the classes push you down a specific kind of path. Cipher system doesn't do that with their archetypes. Their archetypes have certain things, but then they have flavors and your ability to swap out this and that to modify it so it becomes your own ideal, not idea, but ideal character, as opposed to hey, this is what I'm doing, and I'm the sword slayer. And I have a big sword.
So let me touch on this before we get too far from it and I forget, because I feel like everything we're saying, this is a very like elegant way to think about it, right? Every action you take, like in the game, as long as you're doing it in character with the narrative in mind or whatever have you, you literally cannot slow the story down. Like you're literally progressing the story. No, like again, you might be trying like, and I'm speaking about the improv GM. The linear GM might have a specific plan they're trying to lay out, whatever. You might have to follow his trail, whatever. But with the improv GM, no matter what action you're taking, you're advancing the story. There is no slowing things down. What you call it? Like when you're like, let's say in Jesus's example, you taking the battle elsewhere, as long as you did it all in character and weren't like metaing it, like should I take the bad guy away, like as long as you did all that stuff in character, that didn't it was the story. You can't slow it down because it was the story. Like and really the only way you can quote unquote slow things down is by getting hung up on metaing or rules lawyering or whatever. If you're doing stuff in character, in the narrative, in the story, you honestly, there's no way you can be slowing things down unless, again, you're being, I guess you could be a major dickhead and by be extremely descriptive about finding something on the floor and a grain of rice, and you can be a very pedantic dickhead about it. But if you're being like generally moving the story forward, no matter what actions you're taking, like, it's progressing the story. You can't slow it down.
Right. I mean, and I think those are things that we as GMs, especially longtime GMs and lovers of Cypher System, I think it's something that we kind of embrace, because I think, you know, most people who run Cypher System games have some idea, you know, about their improvisational skills. They may not be 100% improv, but there's always a little bit of that there. And, you know, it's just like the people I've encountered, you know, within the system, within the game, you know, they all seem to have a little bit of that. And yes, brilliant loser. Thank you. My work here is done. He's experienced the paradigm shift. So I can go to bed now, guys. You know, I brought one over to the dark side.
Actually, speaking of that, I saw what you just said in the chat, Anthony. We can actually give a live example of how to be a good player versus how to be a bad player. So right before the video was shooting, yeah, I'm gonna drag you. We have to.
Drag you.
What'd you call it? We were discussing, hey, we're gonna be playing soon. And to Anthony, it was quote unquote soon. We're playing soon. And then, you know, me and Dean were specifically like, you know, it's tomorrow at midnight. You know, we're playing. And Anthony was like, no, we haven't set a date yet. Like, we gotta look at, like, you know, they just said, you know, they're gonna try to line up a date. No. There was a date set, there was a time set, all that was set. And us as good players, we knew that. We were all on the ball. We were ready. We knew the game was tomorrow at 12 Eastern. We knew that. Anthony wasn't sure. He had to go look it up. Like,
I throw more better. I'm very like assertive. Like, nah, you guys are wrong. That's just my personality. But I was like, no. I'm saying you guys are wrong. Now look it up. I was like, oh.
It's
like, oh, okay.
It's like I said. Now we've known each other all this time. Anthony should know by now. I'm really the guy that goes, yeah, okay. Because I know I'm right. You know, I don't. If I'm wrong, I'm not arguing about stuff I know I'm wrong about. But it's fun.
But yeah, that's definitely, like, you know, you always want to be on top of those details as a player. You know when it starts. Know you know if there's pre-gens involved, ask for them. You know, ask if you're making your own character, make sure there's no deadline or something like that.
I'm gonna say one thing too. If you're making your own character, because this comes up all the time on the server, and I might sound like a dick, but fuck it, I'm gonna say it. If someone is given, like, someone posts on the server, I'm doing a cowboy game, right? Don't show up with a robot. Don't be that guy. If somebody's doing, hey, I'm running traditional fantasy, and you have a 8-armed alien with laser pistols, don't be that guy. Try to help your GM. If you're building a character, build a character that's going to fit into the little story that the GM gave you before the game started. This happens all the time.
Exactly.
I don't know no names, but I was running a 70s gang, the Warriors. I ran the Warriors on the server. And somebody literally argued with me why they couldn't be a robot. And I was like, have you seen any robots in the 1970s, dude? Like,
well, it's not even 1970. The fact of the matter was, it wasn't a sci-fi game. It wasn't a 70s sci-fi game. It was a New York City gang. You know, it was New York City gangs. No robots. Or you remember when we ran the Mist, you know, the version of the Stephen King's The Mist on the server, and I had the guy that kept telling me he wanted, you know, a rocket launcher because he was supposed to be some military guy. It's like, dude, you're playing mundane people. You could be a military veteran with a depleted rocket launcher, but you're not, just stuff like that, man. It's crazy. So, yeah. So,
Don't be that guy.
yeah, please don't.
Oh, Gal, don't be that person.
So Anthony, I just want to clear up what you just said. Are you 100% sure this is being streamed? Because I've never heard that.
Yes, that was on from
Darcy. That was the first thing Darcy said.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she said recorded, but
I'm sorry. Nah, they don't pre-record anything. Everything is always streamed.
If you say so, I feel like I don't know. There would have been an announcement.
I'll send you the recording, Jason.
Hey, at any rate, guys,
I'm all for one right now. I'm not too confident. I guess.
Just throwing it out there, so there's no
January, Jason.
So what you call it? Just wanted to throw that out there, just in case we don't get anybody's hopes up, in case it's not a stream, because I'm actually not 100% sure.
All right, I'm gonna throw this out there real quick. If you guys are pretty good with this, I think we've covered a lot of what makes a good player. Just real quick, let's hit on how we can help our GMs as good players, and then we can, I guess, wrap this thing up. So, Anthony, how do you think we can help our players? I mean, how can players help their GMs? I mean, we did spot a few things, but any just like overarching advice you could give a player that they could, use?
I mean, GM? Be prepared, recognize what style of game your GM wants to play, and try to facilitate that the best way you can. So if your GM has, he's comfortable telling a linear story, and if you have to be that player to corral everyone else in, be that player. If you have to help, if the table has newer players and the GM isn't comfortable teaching, be that person that teaches. If the player, if you have a shy table and the GM doesn't have a lot of experience, bringing the group into action, be that person to bring everybody together. It's all about recognizing the style of GM you have and facilitating, to your best abilities to help them, tell a great story. Because at the end of the day, guys, Cypher system role playing is pretty simple. Is you want to have fun telling a great story, and no matter how you do that, the ends justify the means. So whatever it takes to tell a great story is what you should be doing.
Yeah, and it's basically what you call it, what we've been saying this whole time. Like, go that extra step if needed. Take that, hopefully having watched this, or maybe you already have this experience, but recognizing the situation and then taking steps to help is a huge asset to have. Even if you don't really particularly have the skills to help yet, you can work on that. But the thing that helps the most is being able to recognize the situation at hand. So then, when it comes up, you can help. Because if you lack the skill to recognize the situation, you can't help. So you have to be, again, not distracted by the phone, not distracted by websites. You have to be present and clear in the moment, and prepared to act should you see the GM struggling in some portion with the other players.
And I think the only thing I would add to that is figure out what your GM's favorite snack is and bring it to him. Especially when you're playing in person. Just bribe the GM. It's always a good thing.
One thing we forgot to touch on is be on time.
Oh yeah. Well, I take that into being prepared, but yeah, be on time is definitely. Oh yeah, that's definitely a thing. Definitely bribing the GM, bring him. If your GM likes Mountain Dew, bring him a blue Mountain Dew because I'm telling you something, blue Mountain Dew, the lightning in the bottle, yeah, voltage.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, it's always nice, especially as again, this is mostly for in-person games, which again is sadly a rarity right now. But if the GM likes a certain snack or a certain soda or something, bring it along. That that will even if let's say the GM is having a shit day, even though they might be excited for the game, just that little gesture could be enough to really boost their spirits. Again, this is a social convention. Again, and this doesn't just go for the GM. This is for the whole table. If maybe the whole table enjoys a certain snack, or again,
Right.
you can pick and
You
choose
know,
whatever. Just do nice little things. It helps with the morale, and again, that is an excellent way to help not just the GM, but everybody at your table.
but that's what I'm saying. You know, the table. I think that's the biggest thing about being a good player and helping the GM is remembering the table. You know, if you got if there's a problem child at the table, and trying to figure out how to talk to him, pull the guy to the side, and y'all have a conversation. It's just remember, we're here to have fun. So,
Most definitely.
I mean, and with that being said, I don't know if we have any more to go on this subject, but unless you guys have a question, anybody got another question for us before we wrap things up for tonight?
While we wait for any questions to pop up, I will just say, thank you everybody for stopping by. It's always a blast to do these things. Hopefully, we'll be streaming more often. We're in the process of being reviewed for affiliateship, so look out for that. We'll be having emotes uploaded once that goes through, and yeah, we'll have all that affiliate good stuff going on. So be on the lookout.
Next week's show is if everything works, we're gonna have Here Be Dragons, the guys that are doing the Diamond Throne for Monty Cook Games, the Kickstarter. So we should have them on. Hope to have a full house while they're here, and yeah, we'll take it from there. Anthony, I know you got something to say.
I was just gonna say that it's been with these troubling times and all sorts of stuff. It's been a hard couple of weeks, but stuff is starting to get back to normal. So we're gonna start, actually, putting out more content on a more regular basis, and more of the stuff that we used to, like longer episodes, hitting a specific topic, some book reviews, some more. We have some pretty good interviews lined up. And now that we have the opportunity to reach out to people, stuff is going to start flowing a little more freely down the pipe. So just be on the lookout for that. And if like all our content and videos will always be free. We just do it because we're just three guys that love Cypher System and BSing about gaming. So we never ask for any financial support. But if you do want to support us in little ways, you can like, share, subscribe our YouTube videos, or follow and subscribe our Twitch stream. Go to our, we have a little Ko-fi set up. You can go to our Ko-fi, give us a little donation that helps us out with stuff like Zoom costs. Or you could visit our online store and pick up some cool Cypher Unlimited swag like the hat I got on or the shirt Dean got on. But like we said, you don't have to do any of that. If you just want to come in and check us out and, laugh and BS with us, that's all good too. So, what you call it, we're going to always love you guys, and we're going to do this regardless if we have 100 people watching or 0, because we're a bunch of idiots and we like to BS about good. So, like always, we love you guys.
Yep.
And before Al takes us home, was that you, Brilliant Loser, or was that you, Jason? One of you guys are talking about wanting to play. Tomorrow afternoon, maybe I'll do a one shot since I'm off from work. Anybody interested? We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, hit up Dean. Yeah, well, if you're again looking at the game, hit up Dean for tomorrow. And yeah, as usual, thank you all so much for stopping by. Thank you guys for joining me or joining us for this. It's a lot of effort to do this stuff, and just want to say thank you to both of you because awesome guys. But yeah, again, thank you so much. This video will be up on YouTube tomorrow, or again, if you want to watch it, it'll be a video of VOD immediately on the Twitch channel. And yeah, again, Madam Vo, you can just watch it as soon as we're done. It should be in our previous broadcast. If not immediately, then shortly thereafter.
On YouTube tomorrow.
No, YouTube will be tomorrow, but on Twitch, it'll be immediate. But yeah. Thank you again so much for stopping by. This was an excellent discussion. Hopefully we helped y'all become better players to be more helpful to the GM. Because, as me as a GM, I know I love helpful players. And yeah, from us at the CU, we will see you later.